Hi, I am Bobby with Writer Space, and I am so excited. As all of you, I'm sure, are great fans of these women. I am too. And when I put this together, I was so excited to have them all in the same room. Diana Palmer is not quite with us yet. She hopefully will be here very soon. But right now we have Lael Miller, Heather Graham, and Maisey Yates. As is the way I usually do things, I am going to ask them to quickly introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their career and a little bit about the book that we are mainly focused on, which is the Kensington series of cowboy duets that these four women did together, and also other books that they want to talk about if they'd like. So we will start with you, Linda. So thanks for being here, all of you, and readers, thank you for showing up. We really appreciate it. And Linda, take it away.
Thanks. I'm Linda Lael Miller. Been at this for a while. I think my first book was published in 1983, so it goes back a ways. Recently looked it up, and I've written 137 books, which really blows me away. Anyway, but I'm honored to be here today with Maisie and with Heather. I've known, and hopefully with Diana. I have known Heather and Diana forever and ever, and look forward to meeting Maisie at some uh, point. I have a lot of admiration for both of you. And that's it. That's about what I've got to say.
I'm sure we will dive in a little deeper as we keep going. Heather.
Hi, I am Heather Graham, and I started the same year as Linda, and that's why we've known each other forever and ever.
Yeah.
Um, I love very, I'm so happy to do what I do. I started off, I was working in theater, did a couple of movies, which turned out to be funny because now there's another Heather Graham who's doing many more movies. But I have five children, and by the time I had three of them, it was just too hard to spend the amount of time rehearsing, going to shows, and things like that. And the very first thing I sold was a short horror story to Twilight Zone in a magazine in Canada, and then started into the genre romance, and then I'm a lucky kid. My parents read everything known to man. And so I don't think I even understood genre when I was a little kid. I was reading Edgar Allan Poe when I was about 7 or 8, I think. Anyway, I fell in love with him. So over the years, I've been very lucky. And I'm really thankful that I have done that. I have gotten to do, especially with these ladies, I have gotten to do Westerns. And I've done vampires, werewolves. Rougarous in Louisiana, mystery, horror, romance. I've been very, very lucky and I couldn't be more grateful.
And Maisie.
Yeah, my name is Maisey Yates, and the first time I hit New York Times, I was just piggybacking on Linda. So she, we haven't met each other yet, but she has been a big part of my journey and my career, even if, she probably, it's like just another bestseller to her. That was a big deal to me. That was like 12 years ago now, probably. So Linda and Diana and Heather and like they were all inspirations to me. And I published my first book. I first was published in 2009. So it's been a minute now, but not, I don't have quite the longevity that they do yet. But that is the goal to me, is to get to keep on doing this because I do feel so lucky to be able to do this as a job. And my introduction to romance as a reader was my grandmother, who just passed. And we just had her memorial yesterday, but she passed in September and she was 98 years old. And she was literally reading the books with Fabio on the cover. And she would sit on the couch and she would just cry and read these books. And I thought, I wonder what is in those books. But I thought it can't actually be that racy or dramatic. I mean, my grandma's reading them, and boy, was I wrong. And yesterday when we were sharing stories, because a couple of us are into romance. I am. I have a cousin who is. I have an aunt who reads it as well. And I did say, and my grandma had five boys. and she read romance. So her house is full of men. And I did let them all know yesterday, as I felt it was my duty. I said, your mom was reading very spicy books, just so you know. Just so you know. And she instilled the love of romance in me once I realized that actually your elders know things you don't. And she knew what I needed to be reading and what I needed to be writing. And once I figured that out, then I figured out where I belonged. So I'm just grateful to be here.
Sorry, Diana is having technical difficulties, which I'm also trying to manage. So I'm going to send that along to Lorelei in just a second. So Maisey, I'm going to start with you. Since you mentioned sort of their coattails, tell us what attracted you. So what attracted you to Cowboys? What attracted you to writing these kinds of books? And how did you get started doing that? Because that's not where you started in category romance. Is that correct?
No, it's not. So I started writing Harlequin Presents, and I think it's because when I got published, and I started trying to get published when I was 21, and I got published when I was 23. And I lived in a small town all my life. And so I feel like I wasn't that interested in like small town stories because it felt real to me. And Presents is like billionaires, and princes and far off locations. And I had never been anywhere. I hadn't been on a plane since I was like 6. I only flew one time. And so for me as a reader, that opened up like my imagination. And I wasn't really interested in writing what I knew. They say that, write what you know. But I was like, I don't want to. I want to go on a vacation when I write. And so that was where I started in romance as a reader and a writer. But when I started wanting to branch out of category and do other things, I think I was right before 50 Shades of Grey. So billionaires were not a thing. And I'm actually it's like timing that happens in life and you're really grateful for it later. Because had that happened, I probably would have just tried to pivot and do the same thing I was already doing. But it wasn't a thing. It was small town and there was Western. And I didn't really understand the difference between the two. I don't think I fully, I was very in the category romance space as a reader and a writer. And so I didn't really understand what the difference was in a marketing standpoint or anything like that. And so to me, they were kind of the same thing, Cowboys, small town, whatever. And I was like, I'll set it in Oregon because I live there and I actually do know there are Cowboys here. But the cowboy thing came up initially for me just because I saw a picture of a shirtless guy with a saddle on his shoulder and I went, that's my hero. I didn't think, oh, I'm going to write cowboy romances now. I just had an idea for this guy. And then I sold my first series, which ended up, they were all cowboys because it was set on a ranch. And I still wasn't thinking in terms of, I'm going to be a Western romance writer. But then I had sold a series to Berkeley. I really wanted to sell a series to HQN because I was like, that's where all the names that are really big on the books are at in this, genre. That's where I want to be. And I was like, I sent in a small town proposal and they said, we really were hoping it would be Cowboys. And I was like, oh, I guess this is like two very different things. Okay. And then I went and read a bunch of Diana Palmer and I went and read a bunch of Lael Miller. And I was saying, what is it? What themes are resonating with readers? Like what do people want to see, in these books? And so kind of went and educated myself a little bit on the kind of the differences between those books. And then I ended up selling a series to HQN. And that was sort of where I found success in single title. And so, but it really, I'm so thankful because I love it, because it was the thing that made me fall in love with this place that I grew up and see it. When you have to describe, and I live in the most beautiful place in Southern Oregon, and having to describe that for people who have maybe never been here made me look at it with new eyes, and it made me appreciate all of these things that I took for granted, the things I was trying to escape. And it sort of brought me into this appreciation. And now it feels so authentic and so ingrained in me that I would be writing this and this love letter to this place that I love and to ranchers and to, the things that I see every day. and that's how I ended up there. And but I'm so thankful because it changed my life in a lot of ways. And just the appreciation of the familiar and of this place that I love is one of those ways.
That was lovely.
That was.
I'm gonna say that Diana Palmer is in the house. And
Yay!
Lorelai, I don't know if you see her and can pin her, but that would be probably a good thing to put her up next
Yeah.
to the speakers. Diana, just we did introductions while we were waiting for you. So why don't you just take a very quick moment and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your writing journey?
Well, my name is Diana Palmer, although it isn't really I lie for a living, but um I sorry I have migraine today and I'm just about half here, but I am definitely here, sort of. I started out as a newspaper reporter and I worked in a small town of 1,000 people. And I grew up on a farm, so I have that background. But I always wanted to be a writer from the time I was a little girl. There was never anything else I wanted more. And reporting gave me kind of an entrance into it, although not really. But I sent off a manuscript to New York, and I didn't know at the time that it took years to get published. And I found out the hard way. But I wound up with enough rejection slips to paper a small room. And eventually, Harlequin, who was Simon and Schuster, then said, "Send us a proposal." And then they said, "Send us the book, but follow the proposal exactly because we're very strict." So I did, and I did, and they did, and they bought my first book. And from then, I left the newspaper and came home with my 3-year-old son. A 3-year-old son and writing are very, very difficult mix, as any of you will probably know before I even tell you that. But I managed, and the rest is history. 208 books later, here I am. So I feel very blessed, especially to be in such company. Hello, everybody. I love
Aw.
you, even though I don't know all of you. I know all of you.
And there you go. Um, so I'm gonna go back to so I would like Linda to speak a little bit to why she writes Cowboys, because I think she also has a very interesting perspective on that.
Okay. Yeah, I pretty solid cowboy background. My grandparents, who were adopted grandparents, by the way, they just decided that my dad was their son and I was their granddaughter. But they were wonderful people. They had a ranch. We lived in town, but we would go out to this ranch all the time, and I rode with my cousins and all over the place. Now you would be terrified if you didn't see your kid for an hour, but back then we would be gone all day. The only thing that would cause them to come looking was if a horse came back without a rider, then they would be on the search. But my dad was a rodeo cowboy, also a Marine. Just the day after Father's Day, it's kind of cool to be able to speak about him. He was a wonderful man. His brother was a champion rodeo cowboy, Bronco Buster, they called him in those days. Bronc Buster is actually the word. And he rode at Madison Square Garden and got to kiss two different Miss Americas. So he was pretty successful. And so I was totally raised around Western people. Then 9 years old, I turn on the TV and I fall in love with Michael Landon. There he was on Bonanza. To this day, I have a thing about Michael Landon. I have a great big watercolor picture of him that my friend Buck Taylor did. And Buck, uh, he was in Gunsmoke. He played Newley. If you're old enough, you'll remember him. I think he drove a wagon or a stagecoach or something, but he's still around. He's a very talented actor, and he did play in Yellowstone for a while. So I think it was always I think it's the code though. If you go right down to the basics, it's what I call the cowboy code, and it is integrity. If somebody is having a problem, you don't drive by, you don't ride by on your horse. You stop and help. You stop and push your sleeves up. And that kind of thing just was so precious to me that I wanted to be like that, and I hope I am. And so that's why I wrote Westerns. I have written various other things, but even now I'm writing a book. Well, it's going to be a novella, but it's about a ghost town that some spooky stuff is happening there because it's a ghost town. Anyway, so that's where uh, I came from.
Very cool. And Heather, I know you come from an acting background, so tell us how you got into the cowboy genre. Oh, you're muted. Oh, Lorelai, she's muted.
Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, yeah. Believe it or not, Florida is filled with ranches. We have tons of cattle ranches. Now, I admit, Miami, since I grew up here, but since I was a kid, it's like, what used to be the country is no longer, it's condos. So
Mhm.
things have changed a lot. But I met my husband when I was 15 and we were both in love with horses. And so in order to afford a horse when you're 15, you get to shovel stalls and lead hack rides. So, um, and then there's still, Davie is huge horse and cattle country, and it's just north of me. And they have rodeos all the time and everything. So, um, I just always loved it. We were talking Bonanza. Mine was Purnell Roberts.
Oh, yeah, he was cute, all right, but little Joe,
I went for the other one. I don't know.
he,
But
he was good looking.
I don't even, gosh, it was a long time ago when we watched that.
Yes, it was. I was
But
9, and I don't even want to tell you how long ago that was.
yeah. But I've always loved horses. And that was one thing. Both my parents were immigrants. And my dad wound up in northern Wisconsin, where I fell in love with the Percherons. And it wasn't exactly a ranch. They were, hauling the log mining big things through very heavily. To the best of my knowledge, it's still very heavily forested. And so you need to know what you're doing to get around up there. Um, but I think it's just too, I mean, I was very lucky through the years. I have done almost everything. I was in love with history because my folks came with so many books. And if we were gonna get into publishing later, and for anybody out there, the first things I had done were history novels, and they wound up in drawers, and I got lucky. I sold a couple short stories, and then category romance. But one of the things I think that's fun that people need to believe in is I had been doing it for a couple of years, and there was a woman named Catherine Falk who had something called Romantic Times, and there was an ad in one of her magazines that Liza Dawson at Pinnacle was looking for historical novels with a voice similar to Heather Graham, and I was like, "Can I try?" That made me cry. So anyway, they went off, and back then I became Shannon Drake because companies were very proprietarial. So, like I said, over the years, I have done all kinds of things, but probably because I did grow up in love with horses, and also because of Bonanza. I've always been in love with Westerns.
Me too.
So I think the only person we haven't talked to about cowboys is Diana. Is that true? So, Diana, what made you become? So I just want to say, I'm from Texas. I'm from El Paso, which does have big ranches, but it's not what you think of in Texas. But I always forget that other places than Texas and Oklahoma have ranches. So thank you for reminding me. Oregon and Florida and Washington.
And
Um,
Arizona.
and yeah, but that's where you guys are from. And you live in Georgia, right, Diana? So tell us how you became a cowboy fan, either in real life or just in the books, because you do write Long Tall Texans. So where are you? Oh, Diana. Uh-oh. Did she disappear?
Oh.
Uh-oh. She doesn't seem to have volume. I don't know what's going on. Oh well.
Muted.
We'll see if she comes back. All right. Let's talk a little bit about your other books. And I think it's really interesting because a recent book that Maisey had that I absolutely loved. Um, where's Maisey? I'm losing people. Oh, there you are. So you had a book that was kind of maybe sort of about witches.
Yeah.
And Heather has a huge series, which I love, about ghosts. And Linda mentioned that she's writing a ghost town. So let's talk a little bit about. So we can segue into publishing, but I do want to say, like, one of the things that I think is really interesting. So, especially for me, like Maisie's book was wonderful. I just loved it. It came out around January, I believe. And I don't think this book would have been written 10 years ago. I don't, witches are very trendy. And so you kind of got in there, but I don't think witches they were completely off the radar 10 years ago. And now there's a lot of witches out there. Um, and I think Heather, you were one of the first people to start really writing a big series about ghosts. And I don't think ghosts are quite as trendy as witches right now, but there's a lot of ghosts out there too. So publishing is a very, very crazy industry all the time, but especially right now. But I do think one of the things about the industry right now is that they're publishing a lot more. There's just a lot more going on, even though it's kind of a mess. So I said a lot of things. Maisie, let's start with you. Tell us about why you wrote that book, which was more women's fiction. It was a sort of a step into women's fiction for you. And what made you decide to do that? And how do you feel the outcome was for that book, which was a first reads, by the way, so got a lot of attention.
Um, I had done women's fiction before at Harlequin, but what I will say is that while Harlequin and I have had a very long, mostly positive working relationship, all publishers do this. This is not, I'm not criticizing them. They have an idea of who you are and what you can do at a certain point. And so I did do some women's fiction with them, but it was always a big struggle to figure out how to package it. Because they had an idea of what a book that I wrote should look like. And I kept sending in books that weren't that book though. And, and then I'd be like, I think maybe we should package it like this. And they would be like, but we think it should look like this because we think you should be like this other writer. And I'm like, but I'm not like this other writer, And so I had done a romantic comedy kind of at Montlake. But the problem with my rom-coms are that I really like conflict with a lot of angst and like heft to it. So even if I'm writing a rom-com, there's going to be a lot of heavier themes in it. And so in that way, I think I'm well suited to women's fiction. So even though there's always a romance in my women's fiction, it lets me explore like some heavier things. I think Western romance is really well suited to that when you look at that versus some of the sweeter small town romance, stories. I think Western has a grit to it. And I think that suits me really well. And so but it was funny because one thing I love about writing for Amazon, for Montlake, is that they want me to do a really different book every time. Like that's kind of their goal. Like they're like, well, how can we make this really different than the last one? And so I was trying to figure out what my follow-up book would be with them. And I woke up, like, I'm not making this up. I woke up at 4 a.m, and I'm not a morning person. And in my head, I could just hear over and over and over again, First Wives Club meets Practical Magic. And I was like, there's a book in that, but I don't know what the book is. So I sat up in bed and I grabbed my laptop and I told my husband, sorry, I'm going to be writing an outline now. And I just sat there and I like downloaded the whole outline to the book, like from my head. And that doesn't happen to me. I'm not a plotter. That doesn't happen. That never happens. So, and that is actually Honestly, it's the same as the Cowboys. I ended up being right in on a trend. Like Cowboys are perennial, but there was a big cowboy boom within the year and a half after I started doing it, but I was already doing it and that really benefited me because I had already sold Cowboys, but I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just following my inspiration. I just really lucky. And it was kind of the same with this, which was another first reads. And this has been my biggest like standalone book by far. Like this, I've sold the most, and it's only been out for a few months. And the response to it has been awesome. And it's like, but that book just came to me. I wasn't trying to do anything. And thankfully the publisher was like, yeah, we see what you're going for here and we'll do that. So I just think like it's a like yeah there are trends and we can be smart and we can watch publishing and we can watch the market and we can try to pivot and try to be on trend and all these things, but at a certain point you have to be in it for the love of it, and that means you have to follow. I really hate to like I hate to be like follow the muse because I'm a commercial writer. I've got a lot of deadlines to meet every year, and the muse is not always present. Sometimes she's not at home and I have to write the book anyway, and that does happen, but sometimes you do have to follow the muse. And for me that was First Witches Club. It was a gift book and it was a joy to write. And I have another book with them that's coming out in February that is like an odd, like the heroine's a scientist and it's about fate and the things that you can't boil down to a scientific equation, because she basically like there's this man that has come into her life at all these random times. Like it's called We Meet Again. They keep meeting. And like, she's like, okay, why do we keep meeting? The answer is romance. But so I just get to write these really fun books for them. And that's been really neat because as things have changed, I have felt like I have this little like shelter there where I'm getting to experiment with some different cool things, but they do not want Westerns from me. They have them from other people, but they're like, we don't want cowboys from you. And I'm like, that is the opposite thing that people normally say to me. Normally I'm like, I'd like to write this book for you. And they're like, not if there's no cowboy. So yeah, so it's been fun and different. But that is all part of the things are weird right now. It's very weird.
Yeah, things are very weird. Okay, we
Very
have
weird.
Diana back on, I think, mute and video. So, Diana, tell us how you got into cowboys.
Well, my husband was born on a ranch that his father owned in Colorado. So when we got married, I had my own personal reference to everything Western. And I got to tell you, in a cowboy hat and jeans and boots, that was the handsomest man I ever saw in my life. Even after 49 years of marriage, I would still tell you that was the handsomest man I ever saw in my life. And he was, in fact, my inspiration for every book I ever wrote, and he still is.
Aw, that's just lovely.
That's cool.
Are
So,
you guys still there?
Yep.
I'm
yep.
having I'm having real problems here. We're having thunderstorms, and in these mountains, thunderstorms get really bad. So we have interruptions constantly. I'm very sorry.
Well, we can hear you and we can see you, so we're all good right now. Um, so I want to know, Heather, how you got into ghosts and created this whole FBI team around ghosts.
Well, they're kind of two different things. One is I grew up with a very Irish great grandmother who liked to tell me, well, my favorite thing she did, and I don't mean to be redundant here, but she liked to tell us if you're not be behaving, the banshees be getting you in the outhouse. And I think my sister and I were teenagers before. It's like we didn't have an outhouse. She was very good, but she's pixies, leprechauns, banshees, like the whole bit. So it was, a lot of legend from her. Um, and then I honestly don't know what I believe, but my father-in-law, I happened to be with him in the hospital when he passed. I was holding his hand. The doctor come in and told me that was it. He wouldn't be speaking or moving again. And the doctor left, and he sat up, reached across the room as if he saw somebody, and then he laid back down and died. And it was kind of like he was just a super. Uh, believer in, in God, and he watched any religion. He didn't care what it was. He was just a very good human being. And I couldn't help but thinking if angels were going to come for anybody, they'd come for him. Or, like I said, I have lots of friends who do. I've been on a ghost hunt on the Queen Mary, all the Spanish Military Hospital in St. Augustine, like all over the place. We did one at the Monteleone in New Orleans. Have companies called Get Haunted, and then the Peace River Ghost Trackers. I've done things with them, and I can't say I love them both because they look for mechanical, for water dripping, for that type thing. Um, they look for everything that can be plausible first before they even begin to, suspect that something might be happening. Like I said, I don't know. And after he passed away, I was talking to my sister one time about my dad, and we both knew he was never going to show up as a ghost to us because he'd be far too afraid we'd have a heart attack and keel over. So he wouldn't show up on us. But and then as far as the FBI goes, that's something I love so much, and I highly recommend to everybody. I belong to Everything Known to Man, just about Horror Writers Association, Thriller Writers, Mystery Writers of America, Romance Writers of America. It's wonderful to be with people who understand what your problems might be, or what you're talking about, or things like that. But at Thriller Writers, we get the FBI in, we get the ATF in, we get all kinds of really neat things in so that if what you're doing is possible. And I think one of my favorite things with the FBI one time is when I was speaking to one of the agents afterwards and saying, "Oh my God, thank you. I'm just so grateful that you all, want to come and talk to writers." And he looked at me and he said, "Well, believe it or not, the FBI wants the American people to think of them as warm and cuddly. And that way, when we need help, you're not afraid to come to us." So, or to answer when we call you. So, they're, like I said, they're just, and the ATF brings in the dogs. Dogs can sniff electronics now. I mean, the things that you get to learn from these various groups are like absolutely amazing. So that's kind of how that went together. We'd been with the FBI, and I think I'd been on a ghost hunt. And I think the thing too is, they don't in I think there's like 50 books in this series, and there's two what they call crucigues. One is the Blackbirds. They are a European group, and FBI does actually have groups all over the world. They're called legats. They work, with various agencies over there. And then one of them is called the Crows, and the Crows include people that apparently really exist, who can have like such amazing hearing. They can hear a heartbeat if somebody's buried, all kinds of things like that. So some of them, some of them is made up because I came from a really crazy family, and some of it's real. So it's kind of a combination. And I mean, just getting to do things. A friend of ours is what they call a fabricator, and she worked for the Stan Winston Studios, which have become, I think, legendary, something like that. But she took me into the studios one night, and of course the lights were really low. It's night, everybody's gone home, and the first thing you see is the creepiest zombie ever. And I'm thinking I could not be alone in here. But then she said, "Oh, just walk down there," and the next thing you see is a giant Geico pig. So what she did and she also was one of the dressers for Robert Downey Jr. when he did Iron Man. And I always loved it because she said, it's a tough job, but somebody has to do it. So it's fun. It's so much fun to use real people, which is why it's so cool if you have a real cowboy in the background.
That's true. And Linda, I know that you are fascinated by ghosts, and you are writing a novella you mentioned that has ghost elements. So tell us what interests you about that.
Well, I suspect it's a parallel universe thing, that when we see a ghost from another time, we're not actually seeing a ghost, we're seeing into that other time because it rubs up against our dimension. Now, that's just my theory, but yeah, I think I mean, we've all heard of people who disappeared out of nowhere. I heard a story once about a man who was walking across the field and his wife was watching, I think, and he just vanished entirely. There was no body, no nothing. And, that could, of course, be just a yarn, but I remember it was presented as, pretty much as news. So I just think, there's a lot more going on here than we could possibly imagine. So ghosts, the idea of the ghost town, it's kind of a vortex. So you might end up in the old West, or they might end up in your time, or who only knows. Lots of things are going to happen because it's a series.
Very cool. So, Diana, I know that you have mostly stayed in your lane with Cowboys because it is such a popular line of books. But I do think that you've sort of wandered into historical Long Tall Texans, and then you've done contemporary. Is there something that you haven't yet explored that you'd like to? But you did have you had sort of like the space opera. So
I did.
yes,
I
so
did. I still have one book owing in the series. That started when I was 13 years old. My parents contributed to it. My sister contributed to it. I contributed to it. So it's kind of more like a legacy than it is like a series. But yes, I'm fascinated by theoretical physics, although I'm too stupid to understand it. But you were talking about interdimensional things, and that goes right along with string theory and bubble theory in theoretical physics about parallel dimensions, in which I truly believe. I think it's entirely possible. But I stay in my lane pretty much because I'll be 80 years old this year, and I'm kind of set in my ways and old, and it takes an awful lot of research to do what the rest of you guys are doing with your careers. I mean, you really have to go into these subjects very, very deeply to be able to do what you do, and you do it very competently. But I'm too old to switch, so it's mostly cowboys for me now, and I like it very much. I think cowboys are very sexy, and I love to write about them. I may have snow on the roof, but there's still a fire in the furnace.
there you go.
Love it.
Um, at some point, you have to tell us what you. I mean, so I get to see some of Diana's mail, and for so long it was like, when are you going to write John Everett? When are you going to write John Everett? Well, she finally wrote John Everett. It came out last week.
Yes. And I had to have my son do the snake research because I'm absolutely positively terrified of diamondback rattlesnakes. I was almost bitten by them when I was a little girl. Everybody thinks South Georgia is swamps. No, it's not. Where I came from in Southwest Georgia is diamondback rattlers, and they make the western kind look like pygmies. So I had to get my son to do it because I went through a library book straight up in the air and screamed when I came across unexpectedly a photograph of a rattlesnake in a striking position. So I had to have Blaine do that for me. But the rest of it I wrote myself, and finally I'm through with the Everetts. All of them. They're done. Quit. Finished. That's it. No more. I
So,
won't live long enough to write about their grandkids.
oh,
But it
wow.
was a fun book to write, and I absolutely had more fun doing it. You wouldn't believe how much fun I had doing it. So I think it turned out better than I expected it to, and I hope the readers will like it.
Yes. Well, I enjoyed it. Blades of Glory, if anyone is interested. Um, so so you're sticking to Cowboys. Do you want to tell us what you're working on next, or is that like top secret? Who's the yeah?
It's kind of a spinoff from Blaze of Glory,
Oh,
and
okay.
it is about the sheriff who was in this one, and also about the bad guy, because unfortunately I've developed a really rather severe crush on the bad guy. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll figure something out. It's unfortunate. Did any of you ever fall in love with your bad guys? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Anyone?
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not one of mine because like usually, well, I did have a he wasn't like a bad guy though. Like I fall in love with the villain in other people's work. So like don't get me wrong, but usually I'm like usually my villains are not sexy. Like if they're going to be a villain, they're usually like the villains in my books are usually like a hipster guy that works in a coffee shop that's very passive. Cuz that to me is the guy that is going to like wreck your life, right? And the cowboy is like, no, I know what I'm about and I make decisions. Thank you. But I did have a guy that I wasn't going to have be a hero in my Kensington series, my Rustler Mountain series, West. And he was just there to cause problems and he was kind of an asshole. And he was just kind of, but he was he was a bad boy. He wasn't like a villain. And I had him like kind of flirting with I did a Friends to Lovers, and he was kind of flirting with the heroine in that book, and he kisses her in the bar and he ends up getting punched in the face by my hero. And one of my friends, who's also a romance author and reads my books, messaged me after she read the chapter, and she said, he's going to be a hero in the series, isn't he? I said, no, he's not. I have all the heroes planned. She said, you're wrong. And then lo and behold, he stole the heroine in my fourth book from her hero. And it was funny because the whole way I was writing her hero and they're kind of in scenes together, I couldn't find their chemistry. And then Wes stole her. So yeah.
I think it depends a lot on how a villain became a villain. Lots of times something's
and Darth
happened.
Vader, then I'm so glad.
Sorry, keep going, Heather.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just,
Oh, no.
I think it depends. There's when somebody's, well, I don't want to give away everything I've got out right now, but if somebody has done something with somebody, perhaps kidnapped somebody, perhaps put them in a very dangerous position, perhaps it's because one of their loved ones is going to be killed if they don't. So, I mean, sometimes it depends on, and then of course, if they straighten out and help in the end, that's going to be, whether they are or not. But, you know, it just sometimes a villain is a villain is a villain. And then sometimes they can be, changed just because they're all people. And we know people who've done very,
Well,
very bad things and have no
I
regret. Yeah. And we know people who've done bad things for a
know that
reason.
Oh, you have funny internet. What did you say, Diana?
I said Darth Vader was framed.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Poor Darth Vader. Look what happened to him.
Yes.
Poor guy. How about you, Linda? Did you ever fall in love with a villain?
Well, I think I've mentioned he wasn't actually a villain. He was a brother, and I was writing the first in a 4-book series, and he was the second brother. And in the first book, which was Banner O'Brien, he kept trying to interfere. It was almost like he was real, and I finally said, Jeff, back off. I'll give you your own book, but you need to leave me alone because it was seriously weird. He just kept bugging me, kept interfering, kept trying to flirt. Every day I'm sitting there and all of a sudden he's trying to take over. It was it was a strange experience. But I did give him a second book and he was still pretty officious in that book, but people liked it.
Well, you guys have been really amazingly interesting, as you always are, and I feel like I'm taking up more than my fair share of time, although I could ask you a million questions. I do want to open it up a little bit to our audience. I am not quite sure how we're going to do this. So, Lorelai, if you want to, I guess if you want to raise your hand or put a question in the chat box if you don't want to be on screen, just go ahead and do that. Who wants to ask a question?
Jamelin.
Hello, it is a thrill to be here with all of you legendary authors. I love cowboys. They make me want to, I have to take a cold shower with the garden hose. But I have one phrase for all of you. I live in the Midwest and there are no cowboys within a 1,000-mile radius of me. There are seas of cornfields and soybeans. So does anyone want to embark on the hot farmer genre? Tractors and combines can be sexy. I just thought I'd plant that seed if anybody, Maisey, that'd be something. There you go.
Nicole Helm has Midwestern farmers.
Okay.
And they're really, really good. Need You Now, Want You More. and there's a third one. Look them up. They're set in she lives in Missouri, and I think they're set maybe in Iowa, because I think she's from Iowa, but she did farmers before she did cowboys. And then people were like, would you like money? Maybe make them cowboys and not farmers. But I love the farmers. That's how I became a fan of hers. So
Great idea.
I just want to say that Kathleen McCabe said, I love all of you. Linda, my bucket list is to meet you in person.
The whole thing with the farms is funny down here, because I I was with an Uber driver the other day, and the traffic was really horrible. And he said something about everybody came down here during the pandemic. Now it's time for them to go home. But this area has, like, I mean, it's grew since I was a kid, but friends of mine moved down to Homestead, and they bought a house because they were so excited. It was next to a massive strawberry field. They were in the house for a year before the strawberry field became condos. So it's gotten, we really have to go pretty far south into Homestead, or we've got to start moving from this area to get near things that used to be right down the street. So, but they are good.
Wonderful.
Any other Beth Saylor has a question.
Hang on a second. I just want to say I've been reading the three of yours books since '83. So thank you, Diana, Linda, and Heather. You've been a part of my life for 43 years. So I hope you keep writing for another 20. And Maisey, I started reading your book in 2010. So you're all my favorite. I have a question for Diana. The lady who has a snake, the psychiatrist, is she ever going to get a story? I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Oh, I think your internet is wiggy. Try again, Diana?
Yeah. I have a character who is a forensic psychiatrist, and she keeps snakes, and she's been in several books, and I absolutely intend to do a book on her. But I have to learn enough psychology first that I don't sound absolutely demented when I start to write the book. I have to know a little bit about the subject first, and there frankly hasn't been time.
I actually hate to say it, but I'm one of those people who goes down the rabbit hole. I love research. I go nuts on it, whatever we're doing. It's kind of like I find myself looking for one little fact, and the next thing I know, I've ordered 5 books from Amazon and watched 3 documentaries. So you can't get caught up in that.
That's why I
For
studied
sure.
historicals, because I couldn't quit. The research was so fascinating that I just couldn't even write the book. So I had to give it up.
I'm writing historicals, but the publishers didn't want me to write them anymore. So, one of the changes in the business.
Yeah, historical is a very problematic genre right now for pretty much everybody. So that's it. That's a whole industry conversation. But I think Laurel wanted to ask a question. If you can unmute her, Lorelai.
Unmute. Oh. I just wanted to say that I came in costume. And
so did Linda.
Oh, you did as well. Okay, gotcha. I'll put it over my sunglasses here. I'm here today because of Clint Eastwood and Maisey. Maisey, because you represent the kind of writer or kind of author who loves your readers. And I first reached out to you with the email address in one of your books, and I've got a whole bunch of your books here. I've actually got one of each of your books. So I wanted to tell you that you 4 are on my bookshelves big time. And so thank you very much to those authors who care about your readers and do make us feel like you're we're part of your world. And today is really exciting for me, and I'm sure for everybody else who's here. I have been writing, I was telling Maisey, I've written my own trilogy, and this one doesn't have cowboys in it, but it does have horses, and that's almost getting there. And Clint Eastwood, I started, somebody asked me when I started writing. I started writing when I was 10 years old, and I was in love with Rowdy Yates on Clint Eastwood on Rawhide. And so cowboys have been part of my life since I was little, and I grew up obsessed with horses. So thank you to all of you for writing cowboy books because I love them. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, that was
You know, what you said though is we are nothing without you. And so we are very, very grateful.
That's true.
grateful to you. Yeah, where would we be without you?
Yes.
Yep. Without our readers, we don't get to tell these stories, or they have to stay in our head, you know, and it's such a gift to be able to interface with our readers like we can now. And it's such a gift to have readers that are this dedicated to hear about people who've been reading, you know, books of the authors here since 1983, reading mine since 2010. That's wild to hear, honestly. Like, it's just every time I meet somebody who wants to read the things that come out of my head, I'm gonna fangirl on you, because I'm always like, really?
I think all of us are. I mean, because it's what,
We all
you know,
are.
somebody asked me one time why we go to conventions and teach people everything. And it's kind of like, it's like, well, what the hell would we read? You know, like, I think we are all still, we're avid readers. So it's, or at least most of us are. I mean, I know some people who say, oh, I got busy, I couldn't read. But I mean, most of us really, I mean, I know before. Actually, I still prefer a book because I do live in Florida and I've seen 3 Kindles go over a boat. Um, and you know, it's much easier to replace your paper book than it is. But and then also I spend my life on a computer, so I don't really want to be on one to read. But I just I think that it's wonderful now that there are so many venues for people to be able to read. When my kids were growing up, I had one in the car, one in the kitchen, and I could actually read 3 at the same time and keep up with them.
I want to read some of these.
Gosh.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Somebody said something, I thought. I'm going to read these comments that we didn't get to. So, the book is amazing. I really enjoyed it. That's from Martha Lawton, and I think she was talking about Blaze of Glory, but I'm not quite sure if I remember the timing when that came in. Nothing like a
Thank you.
Nothing like a morally ambiguous character. Yummy. So we're kind of going back in time conversationally. I also grew up on a farm, so Farm Girl Forever. That was from Jenilyn, who I think was the person who who made the comments. I'm married to a cowboy, so I love the Cowboys. That was from Kathleen McCabe. Patricia, I'm married to a Nebraska rancher cattleman. My family's from Nebraska, so bravo. So I live that life, LOL. Interesting question. Are cowboys still on publishers' wish list, or do they only request cowboy stories from tried and true authors? Okay, I'm going to make a comment as a not published author, but someone who's been in the industry for a long time. So the publishing industry is really crazy right now. The publishing industry has always been a little bit crazy, and I'm pretty sure that 10 to 15 years ago, they would have said, oh, we're not publishing cowboy books, except they always have a cowboy book. And then there's been like 3 writers in the past 3 years who nobody ever heard of who came out with like best-selling cowboy books. So if you're an author, I will say write a great book and send it to, there's always a chance that anything will be published, even if they tell you that it's not being published right now. The flip side of that is it is definitely harder to break in, I think, right now than it has been for a while. So that's the different side of the coin of that answer, right? Because there's always a yes answer and there's a no answer, because that's where
Bobby, can I throw something in?
Absolutely.
Something that I heard that was absolutely great is it doesn't really make any sense to write to trends because by the time your book is in and a publisher's going to put it out there, the trend will have changed. So I always think you should write what you love to write,
Absolutely.
and the trend will come.
I would add that, like on a like very practical level, special edition and heartwarming at Harlequin are always going to be looking for cowboys. That is probably going to be the easiest avenue as somebody who hasn't published before to get into writing. A lot of the people that you're seeing right now that have come up in Western were previously successful indie publishing. And so they came into the traditional publishing space having experienced prior success in the indie space, which is not there's a lot of money being spent when that happens. And that's fine. That's marketing campaigns are a thing and you can do one for yourself, but that is what's happening. So it's like, I just think, from the standpoint of like, it's not to put something out and see what it does and hope that carries you. These are people that do that are very savvy. They're investing a lot of money. They're hiring marketing, firms and PR firms to accomplish those things. And so I still think like one of the great paths is via category romance, which is very much like you don't have to bring as much of your own platform. And so just speaking to the way that like publishing feels at the moment, even for people I know who are, sort of mid-list and trying to figure out where to land right now with mass market, no longer really being in existence and what that's kind of done to the romance landscape. So that's
why.
Yes.
Why?
Because Ingram said they weren't going to distribute it anymore.
Really? Whoa.
Or not Ingram, but RDS, ReaderLink, said they wouldn't distribute it anymore because the profit margin is too low and they prefer trade. But of course, then when you preference trade, not only is that a higher price point, there are less books on shelves because each book takes up more space. So when you're looking at trying to get into Walmart, trying to get into, I could go on about this for a long time. And I won't, I promise I won't. But that creates all this shrinkage that people don't even think about because not only are you competing for more dollars because people are now having to spend $20 on a book, they can put less titles on shelves now because the books are larger. So, that's a big shift. That's a big industry shift. Readers were not necessarily demanding that. It's one of those changes that is made because they want to get more money for each product that's on the shelf. Yeah. So
I miss them. They were so easy to carry. I'd see guys with books in their pockets. We'd have them. Yeah, I do definitely miss paperbacks. And I don't quite get it. I don't know whether I'm having them in hardcover and trade, and they're close to the same price. I don't I don't get it.
Could I add something?
Yes.
Hi, Bobby. Laurel again. I live in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, and we just had the Vancouver International Publishers Conference, and we had a number of different panels on publishing, and I think I emailed Maisey about this, that the Canadian market is about to go back and open up to mass market again because of the complaints from readers. And one of the panelists was the head of, we've got Indigo Books, and they're very similar to Barnes and Noble in the States and Walden Books used to be. And so the fellow in charge of Indigo said, just hang on because the Canadian market is going to open up to that. So, and I'm back, just as Maisey had suggested, haunting the local, we've got a London Drugs that's sort of pharmacy and home stuff and books and everything. They still carry Harlequins, and I'm back to buying Harlequins again because they're smaller and they're more easily transportable. So thank you for that tip, Maisey, and I'm supporting that. So Canadian
Harlequin Harlequin is doing their own distribution now into Walmart directly. So they're not using the distributor anymore, and they're keeping their mass market format in category romance. So I think that'll be interesting just because those are the really low cost books that are on shelves now, and there's not a middle ground anymore. But I kind of agree with, what Laurel is feeding back, is that I think something will shift because, and I tend to think Berkeley is such a big publisher. They're part of Penguin Random House, for people who don't know that. So that's huge because they're a huge publisher that merged into one. They're republishing some old books of mine as special value trade.
Yeah.
And they're only $15, which is more than a mass market, but it's cheaper than these. And so I'm like, is this not kind of inching back toward mass market a little bit? So I'll be very interested to see how it plays out, because people are on a budget. And as somebody who cares a lot about that, who is a mass market author, in my bones, I'm like, I don't like seeing readers priced out of their love of reading.
That's a problem. Yeah. So I hope we follow the Canadians.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Let's do.
I just want to try to get through these. This is a huge thrill. That was from Janelyn. Maisey Yates, love the Four Corner series. Thank you. Lorelei says, thank you to our viewers watching live. Melanie, Evelyn, Kim, Sandra, Glenda, and Patricia. So thank you. We've had a great group here today. Question, are a lot of successful published authors now tapping into indie publishing? It depends a lot on the author. So some people are indie only, some people are traditional only, some people are hybrid. I don't know about a lot. So what would you
I'm
bet?
doing both because they can't keep up with me, because that's the other thing about trade. They only want you to put out 1 or 2 books a year. That's not enough for me.
Well, yeah, I'm with a couple of companies, but I still do short stories for the mailing list, and they're always up. I don't know that much about it, but somebody does it for me. Puts them up there for anybody who has Kindle Unlimited or Kindle Plus. They're just free. So I try to, I guess, pay readers back that way by offering something, that they can have for nothing. Nice. And then I try to make sure too, because some are cruise stories, some aren't. So I try to make sure that in that little line, that I say what they are, which is not always easy.
Right. It sounds like someone is handicapping new authors. I missed the mass market. That was from Martha, and Janelyn responded, I do too. Hard to find our favorite authors in stores now. Very frustrating. So I do think that is a very tragic outcome of the actual publishing industry.
Yeah.
And I don't think, unfortunately, authors don't have any control over that.
Nope.
No.
So authors, is there anything else you wanted to say to wrap this up? I mean, I've just found this fascinating. I love talking to you. You guys are fascinating and wonderful. Were there any other questions that anyone wanted to ask? I don't see any hands. And so authors, why don't you tell us we'll wrap this up and say, tell us your most recent release. Oh, and viewers, we're giving away 2 sets of the 4 books from Kensington. So I'm putting that will be up on the Writerspace Facebook page. And I will also send the link to all of these authors, and they can post it on their own social media when it's up. I was supposed to finish it before I got here, but all of these things came up as they do on a Monday. But they'll be up by probably by the end of the day. So anyone why don't we go through? Linda, tell us your most recent book that you would most want to recommend. Why don't we do it that way so you guys can pick?
It's Summer with My Cowboy with Maisey.
Very cool. That's one of the books we're giving away. And we'll have 2 winners. Each winner will win 1 each of the 4 books. So Heather, how about you?
I wasn't bright enough to have any. Well, I found a couple of things. The Sword of Light. This one is, I'd never heard the word romantasy. That's a romantasy. And then cryptids and let's see what else have I got in here. Oh, Cruise to Die For. The next book I have out is A Crucigue with the Crows. The first was The Witching Hours, and coming out I think on August 23rd is These Ancient Bones, and they're Crucigue. And it was Crew because the first one takes place in New Orleans, so Krewe.
Very cool. I'm going to speak for Diana, though she probably might want to speak for herself. I'm going to say Blaze of Glory. I don't have a copy in my hand, but that just came out, like I said, last week. Um, where are you, Diana? I do not see her. Maybe she lost connection.
Oh, could be.
Yeah, I don't see her in the list anymore. But definitely Blaze of Glory, which is the wrap up of the Everett family saga. So that would be the book that she would choose, which I will say for her. And Maisey.
So I've a busy summer. So I have the Summer with My Cowboy, the novella with Linda, which was really fun to write. I love it. I think it's the category writer in me that I love it when a publisher is like, here's a theme. Do you want to write a book to this theme? And I'm like, I do. I would love to do like a writing exercise and do this fun thing and like have, I get my own ideas all the time. So it's kind of fun to have somebody prompt me with an idea. So had so much fun writing that one. Really excited that it's out. And then I also started, I'm self-publishing a series called Mustang River, and the first book, Stone Cold Cowboy, came out June 1st, and the second book, Last Chance Cowboy, is out July 15th, and I'm just going to put them out. And that's really interesting and fun because I'm used to having like a year. I'm always ahead of my deadlines. I know. That annoys people, but I'm always ahead of my deadline. So I'm used to having like, I turn in a book and it's like 18 months until the book comes out, or 2 years or 3 years if it's Cruel Summer. And so it's been really weird to finish a book and then be like, here, you can read it now to my readers. So Stone Cold Cowboy is out now and I feel very close to it. And it's very strange.
Fun.
Sorry, just got a text from Diana and she said, please say thank you and goodbye for me, big storm. So I guess she got kicked off. Well, I want to say again, thank you, ladies. Always such a pleasure to see you and to speak with you. And you are so intelligent and interesting. And I could talk to you for hours, but I'm not really allowed to. But readers, thank you for coming and participating and for being big fans. They could not do it without you, and we appreciate you for being here today. I think we have your email, so I think we're also going to send you the link for the giveaway, but you can also come to the Facebook page and enter there. Anybody need to say anything else before we go?
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And have a great day. And where I am is beautiful. I hope